Welcome back to Inside Steelers Nation on SNR. I'm Randy Syack with Matt Williamson. Wild card weekend. The Jags beating the Buffalo Bills, as a lot of people expected. 10-3. I don't know if they thought the game would be that bad, but it was. Luckily, the other games were a lot better that week over the weekend. Really enjoyed the other games Sunday night. The capper there with the Carolina Panthers falling at New Orleans 31-26. I got to say, I loved Sean Payton going for it on fourth down after doing the fake, the whole fake thing where he tried to drum offside, and then to come back out and do it again. I'm like, oh,
and then he snapped it, right?
This is fun.
Yeah, I remember I'm like, he's not going to snap it. I can't believe he snapped it. Like I yelled at the TV. And it worked. Good work. That was a good game. I think that was the most competitive game of the day. I thought a big key going in was nobody really runs on Carolina, and their linebackers are really good. Their front seven's really good, but the Saints running back core is obviously awesome. They're like the only people in the league this year that did well against the Panthers, and that really wasn't the case in this game. They did a pretty good job against Kamara and Ingram, but you mentioned in the last segment, quarterbacks matter in the playoffs, and Breeze he made a couple throws. You're just like, wow, maybe he doesn't zing it like he used to, but he throws that back shoulder one to Thomas and just throws him open. Yeah, that's high-level quarterbacking, man. He's fun to watch. And I was sitting there watching that game going, is he the most accurate quarterback we've ever seen? Brady's better, and Brady's really accurate, and Rodgers is more dynamic. But in terms of just pinpoint accuracy, putting the ball exactly where it needs to be for the extent of a career, there's Lolley on TV. Yeah, how about that?
That's why he's not here.
Yeah, there he is.
He's on television right now.
But, Breeze is ridiculous. Newton's been really up and down going into that game, but I thought he played well. They don't have much of a running game, though. Carolina's a weird team. Funchess is really playing hurt, and even so, he's like a number 2 receiver. They don't have much of a running game, and, McCaffrey's a really good player and a great-looking prospect, but they almost have to design things just to get him the ball, and it's not a natural situation. And if Cam doesn't run, they don't run the ball well. It's an interesting offseason for them. I'm curious because it looked like they tried to redo who they were with that McCaffrey and Samuel pick, and then they realized in the end, Cam, just run. If your career's short, then your career's short. That's the way it's going to be.
Well, and, look, if you want to know how important blocking is for your running back, look at that third down play where there was the intentional grounding at the end for the Panthers. They had McCaffrey back there, and he's just –
I guess steamrolled, yeah.
It was like he wasn't even there.
All right.
If you and Lev Bell is a good blocker, and sometimes people are like, oh, why didn't James Conner, which obviously is hurt now, but why didn't he get more carries, or why wasn't he on the field more? Because sometimes you gotta have a running back that can block, and it really came into play, and may have hurt him pretty bad in that game at the end.
Just along that point, this always drives me crazy because I'm not saying that Christian McCaffrey is Dre Archer, but every year people will watch some dynamic small guy in college that's super fast and be like, well, can't you figure out a way to get him in space? And, why can't you get Dre Archer on the field? Or there's always guys like that, Dexter McCluster, and the Steelers flirted with that for a while. What's his face from Florida that was that got in trouble?
Right.
Haley's done that going back to Kansas City. He drafted McCluster. But anyways, it makes me crazy because people think it's like, well, you can get these little guys in space. And the thing is, there's not nearly as much space in the NFL as there is in college for two reasons. First, everyone's bigger and faster and smarter. And the hash marks aren't super wide like that. There's not a wide side of the field when you line up on the right hash mark. There's all that space to the left in college. And the other thing is, where I'm going with this is what you said, is if you can't block a lick, you're a wide receiver. You're not a gimmick player.
And when you've got a guy like McCaffrey, a guy who can't block, and a guy who can't play every down, you're basically saying, okay, we're going to have a 2 or 3 back system.
Yeah, right.
You can't really have a feature tailback. And I know that those aren't as big, aren't as prevalent anymore, but there still are the Todd Gurleys and the Le'Veon Bells and the David Johnsons and those types that can do it all.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And that shows the value of those bigger backs. And the reality is McCaffrey's probably closer to Wes Welker than he is Lev Bell.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, of what he does well. And he's a really good receiver. I mean, he's a great player. I mean, you'd love to have him, but you can't just line him up and hand it to him 25 times and have him pick up blitzes and chip defensive ends. I mean, he's almost a receiver that can get carries as opposed to the other way around.
And not a lot of didn't get it done in the red zone, which is surprising for a team like Carolina with a big running quarterback and a great tight end, and with Stewart and with McCaffrey, but they really miss Kelvin Benjamin. I mean, you get a big target down there.
They need another guy.
Maybe
I'm not sure it's even Benjamin, but they need another guy.
I just mean,
I would think their first-round pick will probably be a receiver. The line's not great. I got to be honest, though, of the 4 games, that's the one I probably have the fewest takeaways from. It wasn't like, boy, this guy super-duper stood out. I mean, I thought it was a well-played game all around. The better team won. New Orleans, Minnesota is going to be fun.
Yeah, that'll be a fun game. And going back to something we've talked about for weeks now, and you alluded to it about the Panthers' run defense being as good as they are. And they've seen the Saints. This was the 3rd time.
Sure.
And Ingram and Kamara didn't really have the game. And you think that's how you have to shut them down, because if you look at the numbers, all-purpose yards for those guys through the roof.
Right.
They're ace in the holes, Drew Brees.
By the way, that's the
we
thing.
Can't run?
Right.
Oh, okay. We've got maybe the guy that's going to end up with the most yardage of all time as our quarterback. I think we'll be okay.
Right. And maybe he isn't quite at the height of his powers and all that. But the game plan was, don't let those backs beat us. Make Brees beat you. And he did, and he often will, especially in a dome like that. And the Saints have a great chance, or actually so the Vikings, that they might be all dome games in the NFC. If the Eagles lose and they're dogs, the championship game is going to be in a dome somewhere. Yeah. Like a guy like Brees may never have to deal with weather.
Well, let's go to that game. The Atlanta Falcons over the Los Angeles Rams, 26-13. Matt Ryan, that throw he made at the end where he's sliding on his back foot, it just gets it up, just puts enough on it, and Julio Jones being Julio Jones.
And the turf was horrible.
Yeah,
and, how's that happen?
Well,
I mean, yeah.
It's happened here before.
Yeah, I know.
Not in a playoff game
in
like
L.A.,
that.
though. How are you bad turf? And I forget. I guess somebody was saying, too, that Sark, the Falcons offense coordinator, used to be the head coach of USC and was real familiar with that situation.
Yeah, pretty recently.
Yeah, right. That game shocked me. I thought I don't think I overrated the Rams, but I didn't expect them to, quote, lay an egg like that. They came out flat. 2 special teams turnovers was, I mean, Pharaoh Cooper might have been a double agent. I mean, like he may have been getting a little something under the table or something, because what's he doing? And they're usually awesome on special teams. They were all year. It was, they didn't feature Gurley like they usually do with screens and dump-offs, and he had like 3 or 4 drops. Really a poorly played game and sort of a poorly coached game by them too, where Atlanta, I kind of felt like we could have won the Super Bowl last year. We've been there, done it. This is a business trip. We came in, we took care of business. We didn't screw anything up. Defense looked really fast and aggressive, and Deion Jones keeps standing out more and more. And all of a sudden, the Rams are playing out of their comfort zone. You didn't see as much play action. You didn't see as much screens. Gurley couldn't get to the edge all that well against the speed that they have on defense. And I thought Goff was exposed a little bit too. That he's not quite ready for prime time.
Yeah, and we kind of again back to the quarterback play.
Yeah, right.
You got a guy who was just in the Super Bowl,
Matt
a guy
Ryan's
who's
good.
been in these games before, a guy who's a league MVP against a guy who might be a league MVP soon, but he ain't yet.
No, right.
It was his first playoff game.
I remember how bad he looked just a year ago. I mean, he was horrible. And I think Goff has a bright future, and I think that team has a bright future, and Rams fans should be excited, but they were kind of outclassed, by a team that had the been there, done it factor in a big way.
And, I really think that the Falcons, were suffering a little bit of that Super Bowl hangover that you see a lot of teams that lose the Super Bowl have.
Yeah.
And for them to kind of get back into the playoff picture, to get into the playoffs, I think that's kind of flipped a little bit. I think it went from, okay, well, this is tough to, okay, now we're back in here. Maybe we can do this again.
Yeah, and I think they can maybe. I mean, like I said, they're favored in Philly, and I'm going to pick them to win. I mean, Matt Ryan's hometown and whatever, but not that really matters. But if And then you're either going to New Orleans or Minnesota, where they'll be a dog, but they're a good team. They don't have massive weaknesses either. Like their secondary played really well and got their hands on the ball a lot, and they're fast up front. They can run it, they can throw it. Like you said, Ryan he's a big time quarterback. I mean, he's consistent. I think the offensive coordinator situation obviously isn't ideal like it was last year, but they're starting to find each other too, and they're getting more out of the personnel than they did earlier in the year. Yeah, Atlanta's dangerous.
It's weird because I think that the Philadelphia Eagles, of all the teams that they could have drawn for this game, I think this is the best chance for them to get a win.
Yeah, maybe.
And I think they can get the win against the Falcons, but I don't think they can beat the Saints or the Vikings.
Yeah, and those games would be in Philly, but honestly, of those 4 teams, I'm pretty confident that the Eagles are 4th.
Yeah.
And Atlanta would be 3rd, so you're right. I mean, that would be the best matchup that they could have got. But I don't trust Foles in that passing game, and I think the Eagles' D is really good, and they may get after Ryan, but I just think Foles is going to be a. You said we mentioned that Goff didn't play great or Bortles didn't play great. I mean, Foles is worse than those guys.
But he has played in the playoffs.
Yeah, he's not a rookie.
It's not his first game.
No, you're right.
And I think there might be maybe a little less pressure on him because he's the backup quarterback in this situation.
Yeah, another factor with the Falcons too is they've basically been playing playoff games now for like a month.
Right.
Where the Eagles are sitting there eating pizza with their feet up last week.
Right.
The rest factor might come into play this week more than we give it credit for. Even like the Titans, they've been playing playoff games for a month. Some of these teams
they've been playing. If they've been playing playoff games for a month, they've been eliminated a lot.
3 times, yeah, except these last 2 weeks, right?
Yeah. And to go to the last game of the quartet over the weekend, 22-21, down 17-3 at the half, or 21-3 at the half. Excuse me. Titans getting the win.
Yeah.
Andy Reid. Not only is it's Andy Reid, it's the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have we seen this team?
I mean, there's a couple things to take away here. I mean, this looked like a blowout. I mean, they were running away with it. And then Kelsey gets hurt, man. I mean, it really is that night and day. I mean, their offense went to nothing from, we often talk about the Steelers playing man against the Patriots, and, but what do you do about Gronk? Well, the Titans play a lot of man too, but what do you do about Kelsey? He presents those same problems. And it sure seemed to me that once Kelsey went out, LeBeau stuck with a lot of man, but also blitzed a lot more. Didn't fear that guy. Adoree Jackson could at least run with Hill. And they're a really good run defense. And Andy Reid has this history, but, I mean, you have the league's leading running back in terms of yardage. You got to give him more carries with the lead. I mean, I know that you go into that game saying this is going to be a passing game against a really good run defense, but you got to shorten the game and realize that the clock is your enemy when you're up 21-3 and hand the ball to Hunt some more. And then the other thing that happened that people didn't seem to spend enough time on because of the Kelsey injury was Chris Jones is really their only good defensive lineman. He got injured about the same time Kelsey did. And then that Chiefs D isn't very good. If you noticed, I mean, they knew. I like Henry a lot, and I went into that game going, Davis, Henry, and Mariota are really talented young players that haven't been used well and need to step up, and 2 of the 3 really did. It saves Malarkey's job. But meanwhile, I'm going, well, why haven't you used Henry all year? In a way, it made you look worse. What was I going to say with that, though? They just ran him left. They ran him left over and over and over, and the Chiefs couldn't do anything about it. And even like Revis playing the right corner position for Kansas City, he wanted nothing to do with tackling anybody. And they have holes in the secondary, and that defense can be had, to say the least.
Yeah, 23 carries for 156 for Henry. By the way, of course, they were down 21-3 at the half, and the team that was ahead 21-3 at the half, their feature back, 11 carries for 42 yards. One
team stuck with a run and one didn't. And the other thing, too, that in a way it really helped the Titans to come out losing. And again, this is kind of like doesn't make Malarkey look good. I've been really critical of Malarkey all year. Is Mariota looks his best when you're playing hurry up, you're playing fast, when you spread. I mean, he won the Heisman with Chip Kelly.
Right.
Play to the quarterback's strengths. Don't this exotic smash mouth nonsense with everything close to the ball and all these condensed formations. That doesn't help your quarterback. Play to his strengths. Know who your quarterback is and build things around him. And when you got down on the board, you finally let Mariota be Mariota.
More to come on Inside Steelers Nation on SNR.